शङ्करांश भूम शङ्करार्यपीठसद्गुरुन् शुद्धसत्त्वभासुरान् सुवर्त्मनीतभूसुरान् सर्वभूतसौख्यदान् क्षमाकरान् यतीश्वरान्.
श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं परमानन्दम् उपदेष्टारमीश्वरं व्यापकं सर्वलोकानां कारणं तं नमाम्यहम्. अपरोक्षानुभूतिर्वै प्रोच्यते मोक्षसिद्धये सद्भिरेव प्रयत्नेन वीक्षणीया मुहुर्मुहुः. So we have to take up the 107th shloka. So these shlokas are discussing the nididhyasana, means to nididhyasana, and the terms used in the Yoga Shastra are used here, but then with a different meaning, but not contradictory to the meanings given in the Yoga Shastra. So here we have seen so far yama, niyama, and now Tyaga also has been seen. Now asana has to be taken up in the 107, shloka number 107. Adu heli odiyadu.
Yeah, 107 ande yato vacho nivartante adalva.
Illa yasmad vacho nivartante. Nimmadalli yato vacho anta ide nim paಠದಲ್ಲಿ.
ಹೌದು, ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಯಸ್ಮಾದ್ ವಾಚೋ ಅಂತ. ಯಸ್ಮಾದ್ ವಾಚೋ ನಿವರ್ತಂತೆ ಅಪ್ರಾಪ್ಯ ಮನಸಾ ಸಹ ಯನ್ಮೌನಂ ಯೋಗಿಭಿರ್ಗಮ್ಯಂ ತದ್ಭವೇತ್ ಸರ್ವದಾ ಬುಧಃ. ಯತಃ from which vachah words, nivartante turn back, aprapya without reaching, manasa saha with the mind, yat which maunam silence, yogibhihi by the yogins, gamyam attainable, tat that, bhavet should be, sarvada always, buddha the wise one.
So here the word maunam is used to denote Brahman itself. So Brahman is, even though it is beyond speech and can't be reached by speech or mind, yet in this context Brahman itself is called maunam because no sound or any activity comes from Brahman. So a person has and on the basis that this is the sadhana of maunam. So maunam is Brahman. So here in this context. So here in this sloka, yasmad vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. So this is a paraphrasing of the Taittiriya Upanishad famous statement. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. So there what it means literally is that words and the mind do not reach Brahman. In the sense, Brahman cannot be known through words or all the sense organs. Word is or speech is only a representative for all the other instruments, sense organs and motor organs. So Brahman can't be directly reached by these instruments, nor can mind reach Brahman independently also. So here the Shruti says that Brahman is beyond the reach of any senses. So it is called Atindriya. Brahman is Atindriya. That is super sensuous. Then here in the second line, the Acharya says, Yogibhir gamyam tad bhavet sarvada buddha. So that Brahman which cannot be reached by any sense organs or motor organs, that Brahman has to be contemplated upon as maunam. Yan maunam yogibhir gamyam tad bhavet sarvada buddha. So that maunam, that Brahman, which cannot be, which is super sensuous, has to be contemplated upon always. So that is the idea here. And Brahman, let the Jnani become the Brahman itself. So in the sense, here the aspirant has to imagine that he is Brahman itself. So this imagination is called nididhyasana here, and that imagination will become realization in due course. When it is done in the proper way, in due course, that imagination itself will become realization. That's why Swami Dayananda Saraswati, it seems he used to say, fake and make. So first it has to be faked, then it becomes real. So that kind of formula he used to give. So here also in all these cases, upasanam, first it is done with the belief that it is true, but then when it is taken to the ultimate end, it becomes realization. So in the commentary, Swami Vidyaranya says, Atha maunam lakshayati yasmaditi shabda pravritti nimitta jati kriyadehe abhavat manovacham agocharam. So here the famous premise in Vedanta is you can use words only in these conditions where there is jati. Jati means genus. Then kriya, some action is there. Then guna, some attribute is there. Then sambandha, some connection is there. So only in these cases, in these situations, one can use words. When a premise does not have any of these conditions, then no words can be used in that situation. So here, Brahman is said to be beyond. We can indicate Brahman on any of these parameters like jati, guna, kriya, sambandha. What is jati? Jati is the species in which there is an individual. Like for example, cowness is a species in which each cow individual is a vyakti. So jati is the samanyam and vyakti is the vishesha. So in those cases, you can give the name to the species and you can use the words to indicate the vyakti also. But then here, since Brahman is not of any jati, there is nothing called Brahmanness, out of which there are many individuals. No such thing is not there at all. So here, Brahman does not have that kind of thing called that parameter called jati will not apply to Brahman at all. Then kriya is action. So here we can, for example, wherever there's an action, we can indicate the person who is doing that action, performing that action by that action. Like for example, a person is driving, so driver we say. Then a person is cooking, you say cook. The person is teaching, we say teacher. So this way, the action is used to indicate the person. So that way, kriya becomes a parameter where you can use the word to indicate the person through the kriya, through the action. But then in Brahman is nishkriyam. There is no action at all possible in Brahman. So through action, you cannot indicate Brahman at all. Then jati, kriya, guna. Guna is the attribute. Like for example, there is a, among cows, you have black cow, brown cow, white cow, and all that. So that the white, brown, and all that are attributes through which you can indicate a cow. Whereas here in Brahman, since it is nirguna, no guna can be used to indicate Brahman. So word cannot be used on that respect also. Then sambandha. Sambandha is a relationship between two things, two entities, and one entity is denoted through that relationship. Like for example, a landlord. There is a connection between a person who owns the land and the land. And so to indicate the person, even if you do not know the name of the person, you can say he is the landlord. So that word can be used in that respect because through the connection that he has with various things. That way, can we use any word through this kind of this method? No, we can't do that because Brahman is asanga. Brahman is not related to anything ever. So Brahman is the only entity existent. So one day, if there's a second entity existent, you can say that Brahman is connected to that entity in some word or some way or the other. But then since Brahman is Advitiya and Asanga, there is no way in which we can indicate Brahman through any connection. So since this is the case, no word can be used at all about Brahman. And then, so naturally, only when a word is used to indicate something, the mind can think of that entity. But then, since word cannot be used at all regarding Brahman, and because of these reasons, the mind also cannot independently think of Brahman. So Brahman can be indicated only through, or Brahman can be, one can relate to Brahman only through words or the mind, but then this is not possible. This is what the shloka says, and the Taittiriya Upanishad also says that. So here the Acharya says, since because of this reason, manovacham vacham agocharam. So the Brahman is beyond the reach of mind and words. Yan maunam vaktum ashakyam tad brahma. So that that Brahman, which is beyond the words and speech, words and the mind, is called maunam. That itself is called maunam because no word can indicate it at all. So that itself is maunam. Vaktum ashakyam. Maunam means it cannot be spoken of in words at all. Yet Brahma, that Brahman, tathapi yogi bihi gamyam, jnana yogi bihi pratyaka bhinnattvena prapyam. Even though word Brahman is beyond the words and mind, yet it is attainable. It is realized by yogins. So yogi bir gamyam. Who are the yogins? Here the yogins are called jnana yogins. Those who are in the path of jnana marga, they will vichara marga. They will eventually realize Brahman, and they will realize Brahman as non-different from themselves. So yogi bihi, jnana yogi bihi, pratyaka abhinnatvena. So pratyagatma is the innermost self, and abhinna means non-different from one's own innermost self. So Brahman is not someone else, someone distant, someone far away, located far away. No, that is not the case at all. It is non-different from one's own innermost self, and that innermost self is definitely not away from oneself. So one is that innermost self, and that innermost self is non-different from Brahman. So that way, yogis, jnana yogis realize Brahman. Pratyaka bhinnatvena prapyam tat prasiddhameva Brahma Rupam Maunam. So that Brahman is itself called Maunam here. Sarvada Buddha Viveki Bhavet. So let the aspirant, the intelligent aspirant, the discriminating aspirant, let him contemplate upon this Brahman as Maunam itself, and let him also maintain that Maunam. So this is a very, very beautiful way of teaching us what is Maunam really. So Maunam really is being Brahman. It is not simply the remaining quiet without talking or without uttering words with effort. No, that is not the thing indicated here. It is simply being Brahman itself is called Maunam. Sarvada Buddho Viveki Bhavet. Tad ahamasmiti anusandadhyad ityartaha. So what he says is the essence of this, the message of this shloka is let one contemplate upon Brahman as non-different from oneself, that I am Brahman. So that is the contemplation taught here or advised here to teach the means called Maunam. So by practicing the means called Maunam, one has to contemplate upon oneself as non-different from Brahman, as I am Brahman. So Aham Brahmasmi, that contemplation is called Maunam here. So next shloka ಓದೋಣ.
ಎರಡು ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಓದ್ಬೇಕಾ? 108
ಸರಿ ಪರವಾಗಿಲ್ಲ.
ವಾಚೋ ಯಸ್ಮಾನ್ ನಿವರ್ತಂತೆ ತದ್ ವಕ್ತುಂ ಕೇನ ಶಕ್ಯತೆ ಪ್ರಪಂಚೋ ಯದಿ ವಕ್ತವ್ಯಃ ಸೋಪಿ ಶಬ್ದ ವಿವರ್ಜಿತಃ. Vachah, words, yasmat, from which, nivartante, turn back, tat, that, vaktum, to be described, kena, by whom, shakyate, is capable, prapanchaha, phenomenal world, yadi, if, vaktavyaha, to be spoken of, saha api, even that too, shabda vivarjitaha, beyond words. Next to, iti va tadbhavet maunam, satam sahaja sangitam, gira maunam tu balanam prayuktam brahmavadibihi. Itiva, or this, tat, that bhavet is maunam, silence, satam, among the men of wisdom, sahaja sangitam, called natural, gira, by speech, maunam, silence, tu, whereas, balanam, for children, prayuktam, ordained, brahmavadibihi, by the teachers of truth.
So he is now taking up the other possible meanings of Maunam and giving note Swami, Vato Yasman Nivartante Tadbhaktam Ke. Who can ever speak about that Brahman, which cannot be reached? So when words cannot be used in respect to denote Brahman, how can anybody speak about Brahman at all? Prapancho yadi vaktavyaha sopi shabda vivarjitaha. So with respect, you cannot speak anything because Brahman is beyond words. Then regarding the world, because from something called world. So about the world is also not possible, he says, because vacho yadi prapancho yadi vaktavyaha sopi shabda vivarjitaha. Even the world is words. So this is a very beautiful thing. Then in the next 109, he says, Itiva tadbhaven maunam satam sahaja sannitam. So there is something called sahaja sthiti or sahaja samadhi. Like Ramana Maharshi and people like him, Danis like him, sahaja samadhi. So that is called sahaja, means it is so very natural to them. That maunam is natural to them. Even if they are speaking something to someone, they are actually in maunam only. So that is the idea. So sahaja samadhi, that also can be name or label maunam. And then finally he says, gira maunam tu balanam prayuktam brahmavadivihi. So gira maunam, gira is through words. That is the non-arbitrary of words or speaking is and maunam is mature. Not those who are beginners in the path of spirituality. For them, that cessation of speech or regulating speech to a very great extent, and some acharyas prescribe that in a day a person can, if he wants to practice this maunam, to begin with, he can remain without speaking to anybody, without interacting with anybody for 1 hour in a day. So from 8 to 9 o'clock, I will not interact with anybody. So this kind of a practice is prescribed by acharyas. So this kind of maunam, here he says, it is prescribed for those who are beginners. So the actual cessation of speech or restraint of speech for a particular time is maunam, and that is of a very, very low nature. But of course, that to begin with, that has to be done. But then that is not the real maunam that the Vedanta demands from a person. So this is the idea here. Then we have some good inputs in this. Nano idam pratyagabhinna brahmanusandhanam dhyana rupam chaturdasham mangam pratiyate ityashankya swarasyat prakarantarena maunameva iti lakshayati sardhena vachaha iti. So here the question arises is, pratyagabhinam dhyana rupam. You have told in the previous sloka that counted Brahman as non-different from oneself is mauna. But then I am not able to in one of slokas. Ayam bhavaha shabda pravritti nimitta abhavat brahma yatha vaga vishayam tatha namarupa jatyavi prapanchopi sadasadadi vikalpa asaha vagatitaha. So just like Brahman is beyond words, and therefore Brahman can be with respect to Brahman, you can't speak anything, or we can't say anything about Brahman. In the same way, even with the result with regard to the world, we cannot say anything, because the world is also regarded in the Vedanta as neither Sat nor Asat. That is, neither existent nor non-existent. So since that is the case of that is the nature of the world that the Vedanta accepts. So you can't say anything about the world also. That is why the world is called anirvachaniyam. Nirvachaniyam means it is something about which you can speak something or say something. But anirvachaniyam is something about which you can't say anything, because the world is sadasad vilakshanam. That is, it is neither existent nor non-existent. So you cannot see, when here also, if it is said to be existent, only Brahman can be said to be existent, whereas the world cannot be said to be existent because it is it becomes negated. It is negated when the knowledge about Brahman arises. So the world cannot be said to be existent, nor can it be said to be non-existent, because non-existent or absolute non-existent things are for that the analogies given are like the hare's horn, the sky flower, and things like that. Gagana kusuma, then the Shashavishana, then the Vandhyaputra, and all these are all examples given for absolutely non-existent things. So regarding the non-existent thing, absolute non-existent thing, you can't say anything because that is not an object for our discussion at all. Then regarding the Sat Brahman, again, I said it before, that also we cannot say anything because words cannot reach Brahman. So that way, with regard to world also, you can't say anything. So in this regard, we have a very nice incident which happened with respect to Chandrasekhar Bharati Swami. So there it has been recorded. A person who has written much about that Swamiji in English to the English world, only through him that Swamiji has been he introduced. Before that, we didn't have much exposure about Chandrasekhar Bharati Swamina, but one day this person who was called R. Krishna Swami Iyer, later on he became a sannyasi by name Jnananda Bharati Swamina. So he has written some books like The Call of the Jagadguru, Saint of Sringeri, and all that, and many other books also. So here in that he has recorded an incident where the Swamiji was sitting alone, in the sense in a contemplative mode, in a very, very deep contemplative mode. This person, he had a very good relationship with Swamiji, and he had the liberty to go to the presence of the Swamiji even without being asked to come there. So he had gone there and he was sitting before Swamiji, and the Swamiji also saw him. And then for a brief moment, length of time, the Swamiji didn't say anything, nor did this person had the courage to speak anything first. So he didn't want to open a dialogue. So the conversation. So the Swamiji kept quiet for some time, and then he gave a smile. Then after smiling, the Swamiji himself started the conversation, and he asked this person, "Do you know why I smiled?" Then this person said, "If the holiness gives the reason, I shall hear it. I shall get to know about it." Then the Swamiji started a kind of instruction. He said, "Before you came, I was in a very, very deeply contemplative mode. That is a kind of maunam that has been spoken of in this text now, what we are seeing. Then when you came and sat before me, I had a feeling that since you have come before me, I have to talk to you. Then I questioned myself, what can I talk to him? If I have to talk to him, I have to talk to him about Brahman or about the world. But then the Shastras say that Brahman is beyond speech and mind, so I can't talk to you anything about Brahman. But regarding the world also, the Shastra says it is Sadasad Vilakshanam, and it is also Mithya, and it is Jnana Badhyam. So there also I can't speak anything about the world also. Then after deciding that I can't speak to you anything, I thought I will remain in silence. But then I smiled because it gave me a kind of an amusing feeling, because I had first decided not to engage in any speech, but be in deep contemplation. But then when you came here before me, all these thoughts came to me, that what to talk to him, and the choice between Brahman and world and all that, all this mental discussion happened to me. And then I smiled because the feeling that having the feeling that what I had wanted to do before didn't happen at all. So that resolve that I wanted to be in Maunam, that was not possible at all. So this kind of thing gave me a amusing feeling regarding myself. So this is what the Swamiji said there. So there also we can notice that the same thing that we are seeing in this shloka, that is about Brahman also, about Brahman we can't say anything. We can't use any speech at all. And regarding world also, we can't use any speech at all. Then the Swamiji said, So once I decided that I can't make a conversation regarding Brahman or the world, I decided to remain quiet. But then that deciding to remain quiet, now it was preceded by so much of discussion that happened after I had decided to remain quiet before. So this is what gave that kind of amusing feeling to him. So this is a nice thing to contemplate upon also, because it is conveying so much of this Vedantic tenets to us through that incident itself. So here in the second shloka, that is 109th shloka, ityukta prakarena brahma jagatoho vivada tyaga rupam va tanmaunam bhavet. So in this manner, let that maunam be, if not the contemplation about Brahman, let that maunam be of giving up the talk about either Brahman or about the world. So that kind of maunam also is accepted. Kesham ityakankshayam satam cha idam prasiddham ityaha. For whom is that kind of maunam possible? For that he says, for some satpurushas who are satpurushanam sajasthiti namna prasiddham ityartaha. So for such some person, it will be for some rare persons, this sahaja samadhi or sahaja sthiti is possible. So for such people, they will neither talk about the world nor talk about the Brahman also, but they will remain as their own real self. Then the other thing comes about the cessation of physical speech. That is very popularly known as maunam. For that he says, nanu vangniyamanameva prasiddham maunam iti chet. Why can't we say that the popular meaning of maunam is cessation of speech? Why can't that meaning be taken? For that he says that meaning is not wrong, but then that is of the very, very low order. Gira maunam iti. So gira maunam to balanam. Bala is not simply children. It is about immature people. Prayuktam Brahmavadibihi. Brahmavadi is the jnanis. They prescribe this kind of sadhana for people who are yet to mature, yet to develop into high level of sadhana. So with this, we have finished the 109th shloka also. So we will just read the 110th shloka and keep the commentary for the next session.
Adavante cha madhye cha jano yasminna vidyate yenedam satatam vyaptam sadesho vijanas smrutaha. Adav in the beginning, ante in the end, cha and madhye in the middle, cha as also, janaha people, yasmin in which, na not, vidyate exist, yena by which, idam this, sakalam all, vyaptam is pervaded, saha that, deshaha space, vijanaha solitude or solitary, smrutaha is known.
Okay, so next in the list given in this text is Desha. Desha is actually some place, some limited space. Some place is called Desha. But then that word Desha takes a different meaning altogether. It takes the meaning of Brahman alone here, just like Maunam took the meaning of Brahman. Desha also is Brahman. So how that is accomplished, we will say in the next class. Sriharim Paramanandam Upadeshtaramishwaram Vyapakam Sarvalokanam Karanam Tam Namamyaham Aparokṣānubhūti Prochyate Moksha Siddhaye Sadbhireva Prayatnena Vikshaniya Muhu Astram Sharirami-mamsa Devastu Parameshwaraha Acharya Shankaracharya Santume Janma Janmani Vidya Vinaya Sampannam Vitaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tattvagnam Vidushekara Bharati.